really what I want to do is just tell you the story about Graveyard Voices, a heritage trail and tales at Cathays Cemetary in Cardiff, which was which is a project that's been going on for about 5-6 years. So, first of all, the history about the project. So it began as a module for students, undergraduate students, second and third years, that they could pick to be involved in a kind of public engagement project outside of the university. And that's how it began. And it began as a commission between Richard Hand and Cardiff Council Bereavement Services. Commission changed the next year to resume performance, meaning it couldn't be a module for undergrads anymore. But they still wanted to be involved because they knew about the project from the year before and so on. So we said, yeah, fuck it, why not? So we kept them involved, so, and the students that had done it kept involved. And to this day, we still have some of the original cast still involved. So it's that kind of project. We had a bit of growth, as Naomi said, with the Being Human Festival. So we got a bit of money with that, and we started to have nicer costumes and things like that. So that was great. And then sadly, Richard left to go to UEA in 2016, so I took over the project. I had been involved as a kind of voice guy and performer, but then I took over the project with Dr. Rob Smith, who generally deals with the music and funding and so on. And then in March 2017, I brought in another partner, Everyman Theatre Company, amateur theatre company in Cardiff. They had created a writers group, people who just wanted to write but did not want to perform. We have a bunch of performers who can't write. Well, they can't write, but they can't write. So just a bit of what the project looks like. This is Roger. He is actually the caretaker of the graveyard, and he lives there. He lives on site in a house, not grave, and he brings the audience around the graveyard for us. He tells stories about the stones, different types of stones. So a poor person would have this stone, a rich person would have this stone, and so on. This is the Catholic end, this is Protestant end, this is the military end, and so on. And he also tells us about his more rambunctious Victorian predecessors who looked after the graveyard and kicked people out because they were eating sandwiches and things like that. But as it goes along with the audience, our students up here, our alumnus up here, our actors up here. One of which is Marie. She's been with us since the beginning, and she tells a beautifully poignant story about the Singenic mining disaster of 1913. She's still with us, past pupil now, actually she's an MA student now, but so there's a constant engagement with the university. This is our music, a brass band. That's Dr. Rob Smith, who is the other director now, and he organises the music and looks after the funding. So it's not all doom and gloom because we're in a graveyard. It's much more about people's lives than the fact that they're dead. And with life comes humour. Enter Owain. So Owain tells a story about Samuel Chivers, who lost his leg sadly. He was a big factory owner, jam and vinegar factory owner in Cardiff, and he was so distraught after losing his leg, he had a full funeral and burial for the leg. So we found the grave of the leg. Nobody knows where Samuel is, but Owain did a wonderful monologue full of leggy puns, which brought, it brings an extra bit of life to the stories. And we have Matt, who kind of crosses comedy and tragedy with the Cardiff race riots through the character of a sympathetic police officer at the time. And I got involved because there was an Irish memorial to the famine refugees and the kind of migration that happened at the time. So I wrote a poem in the perspective of a journalist, a real-life journalist that went through the kind of southern counties of Ireland at the time of the famine, and it's a poem that goes on and on and on and on forever, much like what the famine might have seen at the time. I'm not going to show the video. I've told you all that, so I'm going to skip that. So I just want to talk a little bit about the impact and the beneficiaries and so on. And I'll go straight to who benefited. So the Cardiff Council Bereavement Services, they have a lot of traffic because of the project now. We also, because of our research, found and unearthed the first ever grave. They didn't know where it was, and because of what we did, because we wanted to do a performance about it, we went digging a bit and found it, and now she has a gravestone. So that's, all those kind of wonderful things happen, and it's just people are using it as a park now, and it's just getting a lot more profile. They also use the chapels in the graveyard as a wedding venue, and audience members have actually gone up and booked their wedding and things like that. Everyman Theatre Company's writers group. So, as I say, these were writers that did not want to perform the work. They were new to writing. They did not want the burden of it happened to be fantastic. We didn't mind about that. We just wanted opportunity and partnership and everything else. Friends of Cathays Cemetary Group. These are a great organisation that kind of help us out with our research. But they benefited. We performed at their 10th anniversary celebrations and their book launch. So these associated events as well. And the audiences who attend. So we've had about I think 600 people attend the performances over time. We kind of take 30 at a time. But that's about, and it includes like 65 performers and things like that. So there's lots of audience impact as well. So just a little, I did a bit of a survey on the reaction from some of the audience members. And it's just nice to see what they're saying. So I've never thought of a graveyard being the site of performance before. I didn't know there were so many historical important figures in the cemetery. It uncovered the hidden stories of Cathays Cemetery and helped me to make connections with the site. The performance presented the history of the cemetery as an important Victorian site, culturally and socially, and it was deeply affecting to hear the different performative interpretations of the lives of people buried there. It brought the history of the period in time to life. And the kind of theme goes on in that kind of vein. So I'm just going to go through this quickly as well. The students, because they're still involved, we often frame the project in various different ways. So research skills, work ethic. This is something I created. I kind of created a buddying system. So a student would go as a performer with a writer, and there'd be a buddying system. So they'd work both individually and then all come back together as a group. And the model ended up actually a map of the graveyard as we go around. So networking and building creative partnerships. So just on that, one of the creative partnerships that came out of this are now the guys who come up with Cardiff Fringe Festival. So that's quite a story. I'm working on a professional level commission. So we are commissioned by the council every year. So there is a kind of an ethic that we're, and an ethos, a professional ethos that we want to nurture and foster. So they kind of engage with on that level. And engagement with alternative spaces. So this is not the only project we've used these kind of methodologies for. We've gone to a Lido in Pontypridd and done performances out there. I've been to Transylvania and I did some radio performances using some spaces in castles there as well. About Dracula. Engagement with history and heritage. So, I have been output, I'm not going to talk about those. And the future of the project, so right now the Everyman Theatre Company have taken over while I finish my PhD. So that end of it, that's still going, so the performances are still going. There are ideas that we want to try out and we are on iTunes, some of our performances, but we want to make an app where you can go through and actually look at a monologue while you're at the grave and so on. And a website where you click on a gravestone and you get the story and the performance and things like that. So there are ideas there. So yeah, that's pretty much.
We'll do informal questions after.
That was a bit of a whistle stop.